but I don't think it's number one.
He didn't make any of the top 5. In fact, Ryan Reeves got the lion's share of the vote at 44.7%, man.
That's fair. I feel like I forgot about him, but I mean, he's a tough guy. I don't know if he's the toughest.
And he's a funny guy. Remember when he pranked Phil Kessel?
Yeah, he's a well-liked guy. Like I said, like nobody's going to pick a tough guy everybody hates. And he's a well-liked guy, so he's going to make the list.
Sure. So he's number 1. Lucic's number 2. Chara, Michael Haley, and Matt Martin round out the top 5. Let's get on to the most underrated player. Who's your pick for underrated?
Oh, I'm going to pick my boy Alexander Barkov because I believe it. He's the most underrated player in the National Hockey League.
Sasha Barkov comes in at number 4 on this list. Nicholas Backstrom comes in at number 1.
No.
Jaden Schwartz, number 2. Nikita Kucherov, number 3. And Ryan O'Reilly, who I think is underrated, comes in at number 5.
Okay, but Nikita Kucherov, the leading point getter in the National Hockey League, is apparently underrated.
Oh, come on. He got 6.2% of 385 votes. It wasn't
so there's a lot of guys out there. But I can maybe make a case for Backstrom. I feel like Jaden Schwartz is a little bit underrated, but any day of the week. I remember the last time I saw a poll like this. This was dating back a while, but Louis Eriksson was the guy who was like always picked for most underrated when he was with Dallas because, he was excellent with Dallas, and then he moved on and kind of has disappeared. We went to Boston and Vancouver, and he disappeared. But in my opinion, Barkov has to be the most underrated player in the NHL, and I'm a little bit happy a bit because I get to get back to my Florida discussion. But he's got, in my opinion, he's got to be the Selke winner this year as well. And of course, we've talked about Kessler and been disappointed before. It almost seems like it's always Bergeron or Kopitar is going to win, and I feel like he's going to get snubbed. But he's been excellent lately and for the entire season. He plays the most minutes out of any forward in the National Hockey League, and he plays in all situations for a team that is on a roll. I don't want to talk about Barkov forever, but I could. But I feel like he's definitely underrated.
This next question made me laugh the most. Who's the best role model? Such a sweet question to ask NHL players about their peers.
My God.
Who do you think they said? In a league full of robotic answers, who do you think was picked number 1?
Let me guess. It's going to be Sid the Kid because who else? Who else is going to – and I guarantee you, let me guess, Jonathan Toews is probably number 2, right?
Oh, he is, yeah. Sid and Toews, 1 and 2.
What a surprise. The two quote-unquote best leaders in the National Hockey League are 1 and 2. I don't even know who else would fill out that list, but I think it was obvious that it'd be Crosby and
Bergevin, Weber, and Patrick Marleau round out that 5.
Weber and Marleau are interesting, but yeah, I could see Toews, Sid, and Bergeron being 1, 2, 3.
Here's a goodie. Who do you start your franchise with?
Connor McDavid any day of the week.
48%. Number 2, Sidney Crosby. 3, Austin Matthews is only 5% of the votes. Jonathan Toews actually cracks that somehow. And then
the
I think
Toews
he's
hype
overrated,
is still real.
Personally.
Yeah.
It's unbelievable. And then Erik Karlsson rounds up the top 5.
Well, okay, fair.
Which defenseman is the most difficult to play against?
You and me talked about Karlsson the other day, but I feel like our opinion isn't shared across the entire National Hockey League. I feel like everybody knows he's a good defenseman, but toughest to play against. I'm thinking it's probably Drew Doughty because I feel like that's the go-to answer when you're talking about tough guys to play.
No, Drew Doughty and Erik Karlsson. You had them flip-flopped. Karlsson got number 1, Doughty got number 2.
Fair. I believe Karlsson deserves to be number 1. I just didn't think that they would actually put him there, to be honest. I mean, I think he gets harped on a lot that he's not great defensively because he's playing on such a bad team in Ottawa. And it's surprising to think that Erik Karlsson's underrated, but his defensive ability is underrated because everybody thinks he's just a horrible defender and he can only contribute on offense, but he's actually one of the better defenders in the National Hockey League too.
No, I agree. He rounds out the top 5, Shea Weber, Brent Burns, and Victor Hedman. Those are all great guys. Those are all great picks, except for Weber. I don't think he's one of the top 5 best defensemen in the NHL. Let's see. kind of cherry pick some of these just because I don't want to drag this out way too long.
Yeah.
This is a goodie. Are you ready for this?
Mm.
Who is – these are so arbitrary. Who's the best team player?
What? Oh, man, this is probably a Sid answer again, isn't it?
It is Sid.
Yeah.
Can you guess number 2, please?
Taves.
It is Sid and Taves.
Yeah.
Number 1 and number 2, team leaders, and they're also the best team players. And this is the obvious
the entire Penguins and Blackhawks team, and then everybody from Team Canada. Like that has to be
their fan base is just picked for them.
Yeah, come on.
No Ducks on any of this. No
What
Ducks.
a surprise.
Not a single one.
Who's voting for
not
the
a
Ducks
single
other
one.
than players on the Ducks?
That's true, right? Everyone hates Anaheim.
Yeah,
It's so funny. If your team had to win one game, who was the number 1 player, any position you would want on your team?
I feel like this is another Connor McDavid, Sidney Crosby one. I'm going on a limb, and I'm gonna say Connor McDavid. But
Crosby by a landslide, 43%.
Really?
McDavid the second highest at 15%.
Wow.
Carey
Old
Price
guys.
made the list though, the only goalie, 9.7%. Kane and then Erik Karlsson.
Yeah, I'm kind of surprised more goalies didn't make the list because I don't think Kane wins you a game. To be honest, I don't think having Kane,
maybe. I mean, come on, he had the Stanley Cup winning goal against Philly.
Fair, but like I think you can get by with not having. You know, I don't think there's any elite winger, and I know there's ton. I mean, Ovechkin can win you a game. Yeah,
Oh, come on! You're going to get this argument with me now. We can't do this now.
I
I'm
feel
the
like
defender of the wings.
I'm all for having a great winger, but I feel like having an elite number 1 center or a goaltender is a better option if you had to pick somebody to win you a game.
No, I know.
But I'm
To
not
win
going
a
to say,
game?
yeah.
I mean, yeah, I guess.
Unless
all right,
I mean,
I'll
if you're going to
concede
go to the elite of the elite, then I feel like you can cherry pick a couple wingers like Ovechkin.
Yeah, I'm sure Cooch could win it. I'm
Yeah,
sure Rakell could win you a game.
Even with, I think they can, but I mean, if you're picking out of the top, I feel like even I would have a little bit of, I mean, Cooch has done everything to prove himself, but I think I'm just not there where I'd pick him over like a Connor McDavid or an Ovechkin or like Carey Price or Erik Karlsson. I like he's up there, but I don't know yet, and I'm probably like one of few who wouldn't put him in that discussion. And maybe, I mean, this talk, I guess I had just said how he's not underrated. Now I'm talking about basically proving my point wrong, how he could actually be underrated. But I just don't know if he's up in that discussion yet.
I understand. I want to get to something that's kind of funny the players talked about. They were asked, which quality do you most appreciate in a teammate? What do you think the number 1 was?
What kind of questions are they asking?
These are perfect questions. They're very NHL questions.
Grit.
Work ethic. So that was number 1.
Close enough.
And then the other funny question they asked is, do you like the way points are currently awarded for a win or a loss in the NHL regular season? 77.7% of 412 players asked said they did like the current point system.
Oh, that's interesting. I would have thought it would have gone the other way.
No, apparently they like the way that works. I don't understand, but apparently.
All right. Well, whatever.
Let's see. Let's get through a couple more, then we'll call it quits on this. Let me scroll through here. What's another funny one?
At this point, this is half the show because we're just trying
to. It is half
to,
the show. I'm
if
sorry.
You're just tuning
I had
in,
to bring it up.
We wanted to get through the Nashville breakdown as quick as possible. So we spend about a half an hour on that because it's very depressing. It's very fresh, and we have now spent the better part of the last 20 minutes talking about the NHLPA pool. So if you haven't looked it up, if you're tuning in live later on than usual, then go look it up. You can hear this discussion again tomorrow. But yeah, that's essentially what we've spent the last
We're having
part
fun.
of the show.
Had to cheer ourselves up.
We're cheering ourselves up. We're wiping away the tears. We're moving on to next game, and we're having some fun.
I got 2 to wrap it, man. So
okay,
the Ducks did make a question. They were one of the answers. So I'm going to ask you the question, and then you just tell me where you think they rank.
Okay.
Which rink has the worst ice?
I'm going to say Florida, the Panthers.
Yep, Panthers, followed
Yeah.
by Arizona, followed by Barclays Center in New York, which is surprising to me.
Nah,
And then,
I don't know. I mean, I've heard a lot of stuff about the Islanders even saying there's like really crappy ice there, and that's one of the reasons they hate playing there. So I'm actually, I mean, it should be good, but
that's what I meant. I was surprised by that, but I've heard the same thing from Islanders players. Even said it was bad.
Yeah, I think they just don't care.
And then Honda Center made it as fourth, which honestly, I wonder why. Maybe the players who hadn't been there recently, but they really kicked up the air conditioning in that arena. That arena is actually cold as hell now at Honda Center. You could sit in the 400s and wear a jacket. That they've really turned down the temp in that building, so maybe they haven't been there yet. And then the last one, you're gonna laugh at this, of course, because it's a funny question to ask, and then it's an even more funny answer because it's obvious who they would say. Let's wrap on which team, excluding your own, has the best NHL fans.
Is this? I feel like this is a Chicago Blackhawks answer.
Yep, Chicago Blackhawks.
I swear to you guys, I have not read this, and it just feels like that was the answer.
Followed by the Predators at number 2, the Canadiens at number 3, the Maple Leafs at number 4, and then, hilariously enough, the Winnipeg Jets at number 5.
I think they should be higher because they're a rowdy bunch when they get together. I think Nashville probably deserves to be number 1. As much as it pains me to say that after the win or after the loss,
but they don't have the winning ways. They don't have the winning ways yet.
Yeah, but
Chicago's got the 3 cups.
Yeah, we'll see how that fan base holds up after this season and a couple others like it, because Winnipeg's been bad for a while. That fan base has always been good. It's gotten better. Nashville, I don't know if they've been there the whole time because I haven't really seen them. I didn't really pay attention as much to their fan base when they were bad. But I think they're got to be, in my opinion, number 1. Toronto and Montreal, I think that's kind of a given just because they sell it every night and they're pretty rowdy and they travel well. But
yeah, the Winnipeg Jets, though, the whiteout in the playoffs.
Yeah. I mean, Chicago
no one wants to play there. It's cold and dark. They have no Wi-Fi. You know, all those stories we heard about Winnipeg.
I don't know. Underrated, but hey, Chicago's going to win every time, pretty much.
For a little bit.
Yeah.
Like you said, until things come crashing down. All right, man, let's circle it all the way back to Anaheim. Let's talk some Ducks here for a minute before we decide to wrap the show. The Ducks have Dallas tomorrow in Dallas. We, unfortunately, were right on our predictions for tonight that the Ducks would take the loss at the hands of the Nashville Predators because they were bound to lose one. I think that's a great opportunity to have a bounce-back game tomorrow in Dallas. Ben Bishop was hurt, so I believe Kari Lettonen's going to be in net, which probably bodes better for Anaheim. Bishop had played really well against the Ducks historically. Granted, they beat him last game. It'll be nice to see Anaheim have a shot at their backup goaltender, who's not very reliable, but having a better season from the last discussion you and I had. What do you take on the goaltending situation for Anaheim heading in tomorrow in the second half to back-to-backs? Do we see the Red Hot Gibby, or do we see Ryan Miller?
I feel like we have to see Ryan Miller just because I don't think they risk playing Gibby back-to-back and for something to go wrong and he gets hurt and then all of a sudden it's Ryan Miller down the stretch. I mean, it's an important game. It's probably a more important game than this one was, at least in the standings-wise, because you're fighting kind of with Dallas for that final wildcard spot. But I think you just look at Miller's last start against Dallas. He played well. It's not like he has a bad record against Dallas. And I think you kind of just go with the backup. It's not like he's struggling either. Like I mean, Miller's played pretty well in his last few starts and appearances, so I think you kind of got to go with him. I'd be surprised if they went with Gibby, even though he played well. I was going to say he played well leading up to this game, but he played well in this game. I'm not going to blame him for the goals that happened. I mean, he couldn't do much on most of them. It's just some good plays by the Predators. But yeah, I think you kind of got to see Miller.
Yeah, no, I think you have to go that way too, and then give Gibby the 3 nights off, and then start him back against St. Louis on Monday. The Ducks don't play any games this Saturday or Sunday, so you and I will have a break from some Ducks hockey, time to recuperate. But we have an exciting game to look forward to tomorrow. The start puck drop is apparently at 5:30. Today was supposed to be 5 o'clock, but they ended up having a David Poyle Awards ceremony, so I know the puck drop was delayed today. But I think